You awaken the trashiest F-rank ability in history, a 1 cubic meter storage space. The whole school mocks you as a portable box fit only for hauling bricks. But they have no idea how terrifying the laws of space truly are. What if half of that space covered your head, while the other half hovered in the air, and then it was forcibly closed in an instant? Exactly. That becomes an absolute cut that ignores any defense. And what if you split that 1 cubic meter of space into 10 spaces of 10 cubic centimeters each? Lin An, a cold, mechanical voice echoed through the awakening hall of Jiangqing First High School. Thousands of gazes fell upon you at the same time. Wearing a faded, old-school uniform, you walked step by step from the corner onto the high platform. You placed your hand on the awakening stone. In this world, strange beasts roam wild, and the social hierarchy is rigid. What ability you awaken almost determines how high a person can climb in the future, and even whether they and their family can escape the fate of being livestock at the bottom. So, at this moment, everyone is watching, but when the awakening stone lit up, the light was pitifully weak. A grayish-white halo barely covered the surface in a thin layer, like a flickering candle in the wind. There was a moment of silence below the stage, followed by a burst of collective laughter. This is called awakening? Grayish-white light? What kind of trash ability is this? I've never even heard of it. It probably doesn't even count as level 1. The recording instructor looked at the text finalized on the light screen, shook his head in disappointment, and announced directly, Lin An awakened a level 1 storage space ability. Additional note, space volume is 1 cubic meter. As soon as these words fell, the entire hall erupted in laughter. A 1 cubic meter storage space. Isn't that just a portable little box? Even in logistics, they'd complain that this ability carries too little. Coming from the slums, even his ability reeks of poverty. Piercing mockery pelted him from all directions. But you simply withdrew your hand in silence, looking at those cold words. There was no anger on your face, nor resentment, only a dead silence. You know very well that when you have no power, emotions are never worth anything. Yet, right at that moment, a blinding golden light suddenly exploded from backstage, instantly drawing everyone's attention. Young Master Zhao Zhe is S-rank. Definitely S-rank. It's the Red Lotus karmic fire. The Zhao family bloodline is truly terrifying. Amidst the exclamations, Zhao Zhe, the direct descendant of the Zhao family, walked onto the platform surrounded by pale golden flames. Dressed in a luxurious school uniform, his expression carried an undisguised sense of superiority. Unlike you, he was born at the finish line of most people, and now, he has awakened a top-tier offensive ability. From now on, resources, status, and prospects will all naturally tilt in his favor. But he didn't enjoy the cheers first. Instead, he walked straight up to you, looking down at you, a cruel sneer curling on his lips. Lin An, I wondered who it was. Turns out it's you, this rat hiding in the sewers. He raised a finger wreathed in flames, pointing at your chest from a distance, mocking you word by word. F-rank storage space. 1 cubic meter is actually quite fitting. Once your pauper sister is gone, it'll be perfect for storing her belongings. At the mention of his sister, the dead water in your eyes finally stirred. A flicker of cold killing intent flashed by. Zhao Zhe keenly captured this change, and laughed even more wildly. What? Not satisfied? A guy like you, even standing here breathing, is a waste of Jiangqing's air. Having said that, he turned directly to Instructor Wang, his tone not one of consultation, but a command. Doesn't the school have a recommendation slot for a poor student to the War Academy? I recall it was originally meant for him, right? Instructor Wang's face turned pale. He said in a low voice, according to grades and comprehensive evaluation, this slot was originally given to student Lin An. Now it's gone. Zhao Zhe's tone was flat, yet it carried the air of someone who decides life and death. I don't want to be in a school where I, Zhao Zhe, am present, and see a mediocre talent who isn't even fit to be a logistics soldier, yet still occupies resources. Instructor Wang tried to struggle. This is against the rules. Rules? Zhao Zhe sneered. The flames surged. In Jiangqing, what my Zhao family says is the law. The hall fell silent instantly. No one spoke up for you. Everyone just looked at you, with pity in their eyes, with schadenfreude, and the anticipation of seeing you break. But you didn't break. You simply looked up, looking at Zhao Zhe. That gaze was terrifyingly calm, as if looking at someone who had no future. What Zhao Zhe hated most was that look in your eyes. The smile on his face slowly vanished. He said gloomily, very well. I really don't like that look. Get out. Mentor Wang sighed, and handed over a form. Just sign it. This is the withdrawal application. There's no point staying in school with this kind of ability. Accept your fate. Find a job tightening screws at a factory in the east. At least you can make a living. You took the application. application, took a glance, then picked up the pen, and wrote your name in the signature column. The handwriting was steady, without a hint of hesitation. After signing, you handed the form back, and turned to leave. Not a single word of argument the whole time, because in your rules of survival, never argue with those who are already dead. You had just left the school gates, when the sky turned completely dark. Lightning tore through the dark clouds. Torrential rain poured down on you. Soon you were drenched, but it was as if you couldn't feel the cold, just walking forward numbly. At that moment, the second-hand phone with a spiderweb crack screen in your pocket suddenly vibrated. After you answered, a cold notification from the hospital came through. This is the first municipal hospital. Your sister Lin Xiao's abyss frost syndrome has suddenly worsened. She has been moved to the ICU. 100,000 star coins must be paid within 24 hours. For the special medicine Yang Yen number 1. If the fee isn't paid, we can only stop treatment according to regulations, and ask the patient to leave the ICU. 100,000 star coins. This number hit your mind like a heavy hammer. To the rich, it's just a number. But to you, it's an astronomical figure you can't even touch. You spoke urgently. Doctor, please give me a few more days. I will definitely. The other end hung up immediately, leaving only a cold dial tone. You stood in the torrential rain, your fingers slowly clenching, crushing the rain-soaked withdrawal application into mud. The last bit of restraint on your face vanished, leaving only determination and madness. School is gone. Future is gone. There is no possibility through legal means. This world and these rules never intended to leave a way out for you and Lin Xiao. Then you can only steal it yourself. So, you turned abruptly and walked toward the slums on the edge of the city, forgotten by light and order. The further in you went, the darker the road became. Finally, you turned into the deepest, filthiest, dark alley without even a street lamp. Your gaze completely changed at this moment. Then I'll use my life to steal it. However, just as you finished speaking, a stench so strong it was nauseating, mixed with animal musk, lunged from the depths of the alley. Immediately after, 2 crimson lanterns quietly lit up in the darkness. Those weren't lamps, they were a pair of eyes. A Tier 2 mutated beast that should have been outside the city walls. Shadow Wolf. This beast is known for its speed and sharpness. It is a rookie's nightmare. If an ordinary person faced it head-on, let alone winning, surviving 3 seconds would be a miracle. But the moment the thought of fleeing popped into your head, you crushed it yourself. Leaving your back to a wolf would only lead to a faster defeat. Therefore, instead of retreating, you advanced, taking a half step forward, lowering your center of gravity, suddenly grabbed a rusty, sharp piece of scrap rebar from the ground, held it across the chest. This is the instinct you traded pain and bone for in the slums underground fight clubs. Facing a stronger enemy, the more you fear losing, the faster you lose. Only by showing a more ruthless and desperate attitude can you possibly find a way out. One man, one wolf, confronting each other in a muddy, dark alley. The next second, the shadow wolf moved. It lunged like a black blur, aiming straight for your throat. You could barely see its movements, relying only on the intuition forged through countless life and death struggles. Twisting violently to the right at the last moment, squelch, you avoided your throat, but your left shoulder and arm were still slashed deeply by the wolf. A large chunk of flesh was torn open on the spot. Crimson liquid sprayed out instantly. The intense pain made your vision go dark, but you didn't retreat. On the contrary, that pain seemed to ignite the ruthlessness in your bones. You let out a roar. Using the momentum of the twist, you thrust the rebar back toward its eye. This strike was fast enough and ruthless enough, but you ultimately underestimated the terror of a second-tier mutant beast. The shadow wolf forced its head to the side mid-air. The rebar failed to pierce the eyeball, only clanging against its hard skull. It barely penetrated half an inch before getting stuck. Enraged by the pain, the shadow wolf whipped its head violently. You couldn't hold onto the rebar, and were thrown flat onto the ground. What followed was a truly savage brawl. You and the beast tumbled together in sewage and mud. It tore your flesh again and again with its claws, while you, like a completely maddened beast, abandoned most of your defense, using fists, elbows, knees, and even teeth to attack every potentially lethal spot. 3 deep gashes were clawed into your back. The wound on your shoulder kept bleeding. Stamina and consciousness were fading fast. You grew slower as you fought. Your breathing became more erratic. Finally, the shadow wolf seized the opportunity and slammed you hard against the wall. Your head jolted, stars dancing before your eyes. The next second, that heavy wolf carcass pressed down on you. 2 claws pinned your shoulders firmly, nailing you to the corner of the wall. You couldn't move. It lowered its head, its foul-smelling snout less than 5 centimeters from your throat. The stains on its fangs were clearly visible. Despair crawled over your body like ice. advice. But right at that moment, Lin Xiao's pale yet smiling little face flashed through your mind. You'll definitely become the most powerful ability user. Brother, once I'm better, I want to eat candied haws from that shop in the South City. You cannot lose. If you lose, what will happen to Lin Xiao? What about the 100,000 star coins? What about that phrase in the hospital? Cease treatment. Just as the shadow wolf opened its maw, ready to crush your skull, your chaotic, dying brain instead fell into an unprecedented state of calm. Pain, fear, seemed to be completely drained away by something. Your world was left with only two things: that approaching wolf head, and that ability everyone mocked as useless: storage space. What is space? It's an invisible, untouchable, yet real box. Since it's a box, it must have edges, and the edges, when opening and closing, appear and disappear. An utterly insane thought suddenly split through your consciousness. What if an object happened to be caught right on that edge? Your gaze locked onto the junction of the shadow wolf's head and neck. The next second, you poured all your mental strength, all your will, and even all your life force into a single, unprecedentedly clear thought. The bottom half of the space covers the wolf's head. The top half of the space rests in the air above the wolf's neck. The edge of the space, precisely aligned with the junction of the head and neck. Close. The storage space snapped shut instantly. The weight of the wolf pressing down on you suddenly lightened. Immediately after, a surge of hot, viscous liquid sprayed all over your face like a bursting dam. You lean against the wall, gasping heavily like a broken bellows. Looking down, your pupils contract sharply. The shadow wolf's body is still pressed against your legs, but its head is gone. The cut at the neck is terrifyingly smooth, as if sliced cleanly by the sharpest laser. Fur, blood vessels, bone, nerves, all perfectly aligned, without a single jagged edge. You instinctively close your eyes, sinking your consciousness into your ability space. Then, the next moment, your whole body shudders. That hideous wolf head is floating silently in the center of that 1 cubic meter space. Its eyes still hold the brutality and shock of the moment of death. The severed end is equally smooth as a mirror. You finally understand. The truly terrifying part of your ability was never storage, but the spatial boundary itself. As long as something is caught on that boundary, whether it's flesh, bone, or steel, it will be sliced directly by the laws of space. This isn't a normal attack. Physics don't apply. Defense doesn't matter. Not even the gap in strength. It is an absolute cut on a rule-based level. Is a rank 2 beast's skull hard enough? Still split in two. Then in the future, whatever flame ability, hardening ability, adamantine body, as long as they cannot block the laws of space, they are all meaningless. The useless ability in the eyes of the world, at this moment, finally reveals its true fangs. You look at the wolf head in the space. The corners of your mouth slowly curl up, finally unable to suppress the ecstasy of tearing a path out of desperation, letting out a low, manic laugh. Heh, hee hee, ha 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 ha. The laughter echoes in the rainy alley, carrying the madness of surviving a disaster, and the coldness of seeing fate's whole card. But you quickly force yourself to calm down, because the most important thing now is not happiness, but money. Enduring the tearing pain throughout your body, using that cheap folding knife, using knowledge learned from processing beast materials in the market gang, you slice open the shadow wolf's chest. Soon, you dig out a fist-sized object next to its heart, a crystal swirling with deep blue light, a rank 2 beast crystal core, and a remarkably intact shadow-type core. Such things require a license to trade through official channels, but in the underground black market, it is the hardest currency. Conservatively estimated, this core is worth at least 300,000 star credits. 300,000. Sister's medical fees are not only covered, but there will be a large sum left over. You put the core into your storage space, then quickly clean up the scene. You drag the wolf's remains to an inconspicuous spot at the alley entrance, tossing a few pieces of shredded meat around, disguising it as being scavenged by other beasts or a gang fight, looking like a hasty cleanup. Then, you take off the stained school uniform, throwing it directly into a sewage trash bin. The school uniform represents the past, rule-following, and vulnerable student identity. From now on, that identity is over. You fish a wide hoodie out of the trash. Using the last few coins in your pocket, you buy the cheapest white plastic mask from a roadside stall. The mask, painted with a weird, unchanging smiling face. Put on the hood, snap on the mask. A brand new figure appears in the mirror. From this day forward, the student Lin An no longer exists in this world. What remains is only a hunter prowling the night and shadows. You give yourself a new code name, representing having nothing, and representing the beginning of everything. Half an hour later, you arrive at Jiangqing's largest underground trading center, the Black Gold Market. Its entrance is hidden deep within an abandoned underground parking lot. Two burly men stand at the door, door. Their waists are bulging, clearly hiding weapons. Seeing you wearing a smiling mask, wearing a worn-out trench coat, they immediately take you for a rookie they can push around. Stop right there. The scar-faced man looks you up and down. His tone is unfriendly. Where did this brat come from? Wearing a ragged mask, playing tricks. Do you know the rules? Another bald man is more direct. He reaches out to stop you. Want to go in? Pay 100 star credits, search fee first. You stop in your tracks, without saying a word, just calmly scanning the two of them, finally landing on the weapon at the scar-faced man's waist. Less than a meter, just right. Seeing you stay silent, the scar-faced man reaches for his weapon, but before he could pull it out, your mental power has precisely pierced the middle of the barrel. Space, open, edge, covering the barrel. Space, close, click. Half of the barrel falls straight to the ground. The cut is smooth as a mirror. The two burly men freeze on the spot. The scar-faced man looks down at the half-weapon in his hand, then looks at the half-piece of metal on the ground. A chill runs up his spine. They didn't even see what you did, only seeing the special alloy barrel bitten off by some invisible monster. The unknown is far more terrifying than strength. The bald man immediately pulls back his hand, forcing a smile. You, please come in. You don't even give them another glance, walking straight into this place where there is no law, only interests in the underworld. The interior of the black gold market is much larger than the exterior. The interior is far more vast, and much more chaotic. The air is mixed with machine oil, cheap alcohol, and the smell of ozone. Neon signs leave every face half-lit and half-dark. There are mercenaries wearing exoskeletons, black doctors selling banned drugs, and brokers exchanging intel and bounty lists in the corners. You don't waste any time, walking straight toward the most imposing 3-story building in the center. Black gold chamber of commerce. Behind the counter, a fat shopkeeper weighing around 200 is polishing a treasure, asking without looking up. Selling what? You don't answer, just reaching your hand over the counter. With a thud, that fist-sized crystal core with flowing deep blue light lands heavily on the counter. The fat man pauses, slowly looks up. The greed in his eyes is almost impossible to hide, but he is an old hand in the black market after all. The shock on his face lasts only half a second, then turns into disdain. He picks up the core and pretends to examine it, then tosses it back onto the counter. Average quality, impure energy, barely second-tier level. Take it or leave it. This isn't just lowballing, it's practically highway robbery. But you are either angry, nor do you haggle. Just a soft, cold sneer, immediately retrieving the core into your space. Turning to leave, the fat man suddenly panics. Only those who don't know the market would persist. Turning and leaving like you do only proves you know more than he does. Wait, the price is negotiable. You don't stop. 200,000. You keep walking. 250,000. Can't go any higher. Only then do you stop. Turning halfway, the smiling mask looks particularly eerie under the lights. 300,000. Transfer to an anonymous black card. The fat man's face twitches, finally grits his teeth and agrees. Soon, a pitch black metal card with no markings is pushed toward you. You take the black card and turn to leave, and the moment you step out of the chamber doors, the smile on the fat man's face instantly vanishes. He gestures to a burly man drinking in the corner to take care of it. The burly man grins, leading 4 other tattooed thugs, following silently behind. You notice those 5 tails from the start. More importantly, on the way, you also tested a new use for your ability. You pick up a piece of rubble. At the moment of stepping, store it in the space, and at the same time as the next step, release it from the front. As a result, that piece of rubble, carrying the kinetic energy of your run, shot out like a bullet. At this moment, you immediately realize the storage space can not only cut, but also temporarily store and release kinetic energy. So, a more efficient counterkill plan quickly takes shape. You intentionally lead those 5 through the maze-like city streets, twisting and turning, finally entering an abandoned 3rd-level underground parking lot. It's dark here, remote, deserted, and with no surveillance. The perfect place to deal with trouble. Sure enough, after you stop, those 5 immediately surround you from different directions, blocking all your escape routes. The burly man leading them holds an alloy machete, his face full of the mockery of a cat playing with a mouse. Kid, you're quite a runner, huh? Leave the card, and hand over everything on you. We're in a good mood today. Maybe we'll let you suffer a bit less. You slowly turn around, the smiling mask looking eerie and sinister under the dim light. You are not angry, nor do you make any threats. You just ask in a voice so calm it's cold. Your heads, are they worth any money? The burly man is stunned for a moment, then flies into a rage, gripping the blade with both hands. He delivers a vicious chop toward your forehead. The blade tears through the air, whistling downward. For an ordinary person, this blow would be enough to split them from head to chest. But instead of retreating, you step forward toward the blade. The moment the blade falls, the edge of the space has already swept across the blade. Consequently, the sharpest front half of the blade simply vanishes into thin air. The burly man feels the weight vanish, stumbling forward violently as his force finds no resistance. And you have already slid within a meter of him. Space, open, edge, covering the neck, space, close, squelch, a muffled sound. The ferocity and rage on the burly man's face freeze instantly. The next second, crimson liquid spurts upward from the severed neck. The headless body, still in a charging posture, crashes heavily to the ground. The air instantly falls dead silent. The remaining 4 thugs are all frozen, the sneers on their faces frozen stiff, leaving only pure terror. They didn't even understand what you did. They only saw a living man's head, just gone. Finally, someone screams in a breakdown. Ghost! It's a ghost! The 4 of them turn and flee, but you cannot let them leave alive. With a stomp of your foot, you chase the nearest person like a ghost gliding across the floor, and you stand in the center, your black trench coat clean, without a single drop of blood. Clean, without a single drop. You crouch down, calmly searching the bodies. A few minutes later, you stand up. The haul is decent. A few stacks of cash, about 30,000 star credits, and an exquisitely crafted military alloy dagger. You store the money and dagger in the space, then feel the black card in your inner pocket. 300,000, plus these 30,000 more. It's enough, finally enough. Through that eerie smiling mask, your gaze seems to pierce through layers of darkness, seeing that pale little face in the hospital ICU. Those eyes that had been cold and lifeless finally have a glimmer of warmth. Xia Xia, Big Brother has the money to save you, you say softly, carefully placing the black card back into your inner pocket. Then, without lingering, you turn and leave, leaving this blood-soaked parking lot to the depths of darkness. Less than 5 minutes after you leave, tap, 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 the sound of hurried footsteps approaches. The fat shopkeeper of the Black Gold Chamber of Commerce, accompanied by a guard with an energy gun, a fierce-looking guard, arrives aggressively at this abandoned parking lot. Where is he? Damn it. 5 against 1, and he still got away. Once I catch that brat, I'll personally. The fat shopkeeper's cursing. The moment he saw the scene before him, came to an abrupt halt. The fat on his face trembled violently. Those small eyes squeezed into slits were now wide open. Bloodshot. 5 bodies. 5 decapitated bodies. His most capable henchman, the leader who awakened C-rank hardened skin, lay in a pool of blood like a torn sack. The cut on the neck was so smooth it could be used as a mirror. A bone-chilling cold shot from the fat man's tailbone to the crown of his head. With a thud, his legs gave way. He slumped down onto the cold, viscous liquid. His lips trembled. His teeth chattered. This cut. He pointed at the mirror-smooth severed neck, his voice trembling with tears and endless fear. No burns, no tearing. It's spatial cutting. To use spatial laws with such precision, to such a terrifying degree. At least B-rank peak. No, it's an A-rank spatial type powerhouse. The fat shopkeeper's mind buzzed, went blank. Just what kind of existence has he provoked? Jiangqing. Since when did such a god of death arrive? The night was deep. The rain had stopped. First, you put away that black trench coat symbolizing 0, the smiling mask, and that stained military dagger into the storage space. Then, you changed back into the clothes picked up from the trash, the old school uniform you had since washed clean, carrying the faded backpack, becoming once again that ordinary-looking, and even somewhat frail student. However, clothes can be changed, but the look in your eyes cannot be changed back. The youth who once carried a hint of inferiority and endurance had disappeared in the rainy alley last night. Now your eyes held an unbreakable coldness and sharpness. Then, you headed straight to Jiangqing First Hospital. At the payment window late at night, the nurse on duty was drowsy, but when you slammed that anonymous black card onto the glass, she was startled awake. Before she could even fully show her impatience, you looked at her and said only one thing. ICU, Lin Xia. Use the best specialized medicine, immediately. Right now, there are 300,000 on the card. If it's not enough, I'll find another way. Your voice was raspy, but but left no room for negotiation. The nurse was stunned at first. Then she looked down at the anonymous black card representing a huge sum. Then looked up at your cheap school uniform. Her eyes filled with disbelief. A boy dressed like a poverty-stricken student could casually slap down over 300,000 star credits. This contrast left her momentarily speechless. But the balance on the black card doesn't lie. So she immediately changed her attitude. Got up to contact the doctor, arranging the highest level of treatment. Half an hour later, the latest gene repair agent was finally slowly injected into Lin An, until seeing your sister's pale, paper-white face, finally slowly regaining a hint of color. Your tightly wound nerves finally relaxed a little. The ward was very quiet. You sat by the bed, smoothing her sweat-soaked hair. Your movements were gentle. Only at this moment, the bone-freezing violence and killing intent in your eyes finally receded bit by bit, turning into an almost clumsy tenderness. Lin An is your only anchor in this cold world, and your ultimate trigger. Yet, although she was weak from illness, her mind remained perceptive. Her eyelashes fluttered. She slowly opened her eyes, grabbing your hand, softly asking if you had done something dangerous. She smelled that faint but unmistakable scent of rust, and felt the coldness emanating from you, so different from before. Your heart suddenly clenched, but you still forced a gentle smile on your face. Rubbing her head as usual, you lied to her softly. No, brother just sold that school spot to a rich Chable's son to get some money to pay for your treatment first. Hearing this, Lin An's eyes immediately dimmed. She knew all too well what that spot meant to you, and how much you had sacrificed for it over the years. With reddened eyes, she whispered that she was only holding you back, but you just pinched her nose, smiling as if coaxing a child. It's just a stupid spot. It's gone, so it's gone. Even if brother doesn't go to school, I can still become the strongest. Don't overthink things now. Just focus on recovering. Once you're better, brother will take you to eat tomhulu in the south of the city. After Lin An fell back asleep, you tucked her in, then looked at her silently for a long time. Not until you walked out of the ward did the last bit of warmth on your face completely vanish. In its place was a killing intent colder than the night. Zhao Zhe, stealing your spot, insulting your sister, and trampling your dignity. It's about time to settle the score. The next morning, sunlight shone through the gates of Jiangqing First High School, but when it fell upon you, it seemed to be blocked by an invisible chill. Just like every day for the past 3 years, you entered the school with your old backpack, except, this time, you didn't return to the classroom, but went straight to the academic affairs office to pick up a registration form for the social martial artist exam. Since the recommendation spot was forcibly taken by Zhao Zhe, then, the path through school was already severed. In that case, you would take a path that was harder, more dangerous, but also more direct. The social martial artist exam carried extremely high risks. Those who participated were either those without background or resources, ruthless people who had to gamble their lives for a future, or those driven to a dead end, with no way back. And you, clearly belonged to the latter. However, just as you stepped out of the office with the form, a piercing voice came from the hallway ahead. Yo, isn't this our school's former genius, Lin An? You looked up, and saw Zhao Zhe approaching with a lackey, his arm around a heavily made-up classmate, his face full of smug triumph. That look was exactly like a winner who, after climbing high on others' bones, still makes a point of looking back to mock them. He walked up to you, first deliberately sizing you up, then began to sneer, saying you didn't come to class yesterday, asking if you were at home feeling heartbroken. You couldn't be bothered with him, and turned to walk around him, but Zhao Zhe grabbed your shoulder. Then his gaze dropped, landing on the registration form in your hand. He snatched it away, looking at the words. He paused for a moment, then, as if he'd heard the greatest joke in the world, he burst into exaggerated laughter. A social martial artist exam registration form. Look at this, everyone. A guy who awakened in E-rank storage space actually wants to take the social exam. Are you tired of living, planning to go to the wild zone to deliver takeout to monsters? His voice was loud, and a crowd of students quickly gathered in the hallway. Some whispered, saying you must have been traumatized. Others shook their heads and sighed, feeling that for someone like you, taking the exam was no different from seeking death. Some just wanted to watch the drama, wanting to see if, after being trampled into the mud by Zhao Zhe, you would still bow your head and accept your fate as before. In their eyes, your past endurance and silence had long been mistaken for weakness. So, they all thought that this time would be no different. However, just when everyone was thinking that, Zhao Zhe threw the registration form onto the ground. Then he lifted his foot, using those limited edition tactical boots worth tens of thousands of star coins, and stepped down hard, grinding it back and forth, while looking down at you, his tone malicious to the extreme. extreme, mediocre talent should stay where they belong. This paper, the Zhao family, this piece of paper, is nothing but your delusional fantasy. Crushing it is as simple as stepping on an ant. If it were before, you might have actually bowed your head, silently picked up that paper, and swallowed all the humiliation. Unfortunately, times have changed. You slowly raised your head, no angry roar on your face, nor tears of humiliation, only a terrifying calmness, those frighteningly black eyes, like two abysses swallowing the light. The next second, without any warning, boom, a dull, loud crash exploded through the corridor. Your body sank slightly. Your right leg became a blur, like a whip. A heavy, powerful front kick slammed squarely into Zhao Zai's abdomen. That kick was too fast and too heavy. The sneer on Zhao Zai's face didn't even have time to fade. He was hit head-on like by a high-speed beast. His body curled up like a shrimp. A spray of gastric acid and bile erupted. Then his feet left the ground, flying backward more than 3 meters. Boom. Crash. His back slammed hard into the corridor's display board. The entire tempered glass shattered instantly. Countless shards flew everywhere. The entire place fell instantly silent. No one expected that you would strike, and no one imagined that you could send Zhao Zai flying like that with one kick. Zhao Zai slid down from the glass shards like a heap of mud, curling up on the ground, face pale, too pained to even let out a full scream, while you simply withdrew your foot slowly, still standing in place, as if that kick wasn't to send someone flying, but merely brushing off some dust. However, this was far from over. From the crowd behind Zhao Zai, a silent, buzz-cut middle-aged man suddenly stepped forward. His temples bulged. His aura suddenly erupted. The floor tiles beneath him even cracked from the force. D-rank, strength-type awakener. This was the bodyguard the Zhao family specifically assigned to Zhao Zai, a ruthless veteran from the military system. "Kid, you've got some nerve." With a thunderous shout, the bodyguard charged forward like a cannonball, a massive fist, whistling as it tore through the air, aiming straight for your face. The surrounding students panicked instantly. Screams, gasps, and the sound of retreating merged into chaos, because everyone knew a strength-type awakener of this level, breaking bones with a punch, was not an exaggeration at all. However, you didn't retreat. Not only that, but at the moment the fist was about to touch your nose, you stepped forward to meet it. To be precise, you didn't charge head-on, but like a drop of water, you eerily slid into the opponent's embrace, closing the distance to within 1 meter. The bodyguard was stunned for a moment, then he sneered, because in his eyes, close combat was exactly where strength-type awakeners excelled most. So, he immediately retracted his fist and changed moves. His arms slammed together toward the center, intending to crush you, bones and organs alike, into powder. Unfortunately, he had no idea, 1 meter of proximity, what that meant to you. It wasn't close combat. It was an execution. An invisible spatial ripple flashed by. You didn't even make a single unnecessary move. Only a faint thought occurred in your mind. Space, edge, covering the arm joints. Space, contract, snap. After a bone-chilling snap, every student and teacher witnessed the most unforgettable scene of their lives. The bodyguard's 2 arms, just before they could touch your body, were cleanly severed at the elbows. 2 thick severed arms, including the forearms and fists, still held in a closing position, abruptly detached from the body. Then, with 2 thuds, they fell onto the floor tiles, the cut, smooth as a mirror. First, there was dead silence. Then, crimson liquid, as if delayed by half a second, spurted out from those eerily smooth stumps, instantly splashing wide fan-shaped stains across the white corridor walls. The bodyguard looked down at his empty elbows, then at the 2 severed arms still twitching on the ground. The ferocity on his face froze completely, until the next second, when the agony finally hit his brain. He let out a guttural scream that didn't sound human. He collapsed to his knees with a thud, rolling on the floor like slaughtered livestock. At this moment, the entire corridor was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was stunned, because they hadn't seen what you did at all. Not even a trace of an obvious ability fluctuation was detected. The arms of a D-rank strength type awakened were just gone, and you simply stepped over the bodyguard wailing in a pool of blood, walking steadily toward Zhao Zai. At this moment, Zhao Zai was completely terrified. His face was as white as paper, crawling backward with his hands and feet. His crotch soon became wet. He had actually lost control from fear. You walked up to him, stopped, then, under hundreds of terrified, awestruck, and horrified gazes, you slowly lifted your foot, using that faded, cheap sneaker, stamping heavily on Zhao Zai's swollen, distorted face, grinding his head firmly into the cold floor covered in glass shards. Humiliation. Unprecedented humiliation. You looked down at the face deformed by fear beneath your foot. Your voice wasn't loud, but like an Arctic current. It reached the ears of everyone present clearly. Your recommended admission slot. I don't care for it. At the grand exam, I will, in front of everyone, personally shatter everything you take pride in. After speaking, you slowly lifted your foot, not even bothering to glance at him again. You turned around, bent over, picking up the social martial artist exam registration form covered in footprints, gently dusting it off with your hand. Then, carrying your old backpack, through the path that everyone instinctively cleared, you strode away. Sunlight streamed through the corridor windows, stretching your silhouette long, lonely, silent, yet carrying an oppressive aura that made people dare not look. Meanwhile, in the principal's office, the old principal was staring at the surveillance playback. His hands were shaking. The frame froze at the moment you severed the bodyguard's arms. No obvious leakage of spiritual power, no exaggerated energy fluctuations. Even the spatial ripples were so weak they were almost negligible. The more it was like this, the more terrifying it became, because it meant your ability wasn't produced by force, but acted directly on the level of laws. The old principal grew more alarmed as he watched. He couldn't even hold the teacup steady. It smashed directly onto the floor. This is not an E-rank storage space at all. This is the manifestation of spatial laws. At this moment, he finally realized that Jiangqing had produced a true monster. So, he immediately pressed the emergency button, ordering that those 3 minutes of surveillance footage be classified as S-rank top secret, sealing all original data. No one is allowed to access it. Not only that, he also requested all your files from the past 3 years, clearly wanting to completely reevaluate you, who were originally seen by everyone as a mediocre student. However, just as the school realized your value, over at the Zhao family, a real murderous intent had already been stirred. Inside the Zhao family villa, the atmosphere under the luxurious crystal chandeliers was as oppressive as an ice cellar. Zhao Zhe, with a swollen face, lay on the sofa, screaming for revenge. May you die a miserable death. Zhao Xiong stood before the floor-to-ceiling window, listened to the whole process in silence, then directly placed an encrypted call. The person on the other end was called Hyena, a squad of desperados specializing in dirty work and black ops in the wilderness zone. Zhao Xiong offered 10 million star coins to buy your life, but after learning you crippled a D-rank bodyguard's arms in one go, Hyena immediately raised the price, demanding 5 million more for equipment upgrades, and specified they were only responsible for creating an accident. The traces would eventually be cleaned up by mutated beasts. The military would never find any problem. Zhao Xiong agreed without any hesitation. In his view, no matter what kind of monster you are, once you enter the wilderness, you'll sooner or later become a corpse torn apart by beasts. 3 days later, with only half a month left until the National Ability Exam, the Jiangqing Military and Education Bureau organized the final large-scale combat trial. The location was outside the city, Wilderness Zone 07. The reason this trial drove all seniors crazy was not only because it would directly affect the exam evaluation, but also because the military offered extremely generous rewards, especially the prize for first place, an invaluable Tier 3 energy core. This thing is enough to make any awakened envious. The playground was filled with military hover buses. Students gathered in small groups, nervousness intertwined with anticipation, and you, carrying a worn-out tactical backpack, standing alone in the corner, completely out of place with everyone around. After the battle in the corridor that day, no one dared to come within 3 meters of you. You were like a block of ice, and like a black hole, making people instinctively fear you, and instinctively keep their distance. Just then, a striking figure walked through the crowd to stand before you. Su Shui, the school beauty of Jiangqing No. 1 High School, and the recognized top genius, awakened with S-rank ice ability, always at the center of the crowd and praise. She wore a purple tight-fitting combat suit. Her ice blue long hair was striking in the sunlight. She was like a beautiful and sharp ice blade. She looked at you, her tone carrying a hint of warning, and a bit of habitual condescension. The wilderness zone isn't a school corridor. An E-rank like you had better stick with the main group. Don't lose your life trying to show off. From her perspective, this might be considered kindness, but to you, this kind of kindness based on I am superior to you, and "You should listen to me," was inherently noisy, so you just glanced up at her and coldly replied with 2 words. Shura was stunned on the spot. She clearly didn't expect that her lowering herself to warn you would be met with those 2 words. Then, anger surged up instantly. She turned and left with a cold face, leaving behind a sentence. "Ungrateful brat. I'll see how you fail in there." And you just lowered your head again, as if nothing had happened. To you, irrelevant people were nothing more than noise. Soon, the hoverbuses passed through the giant alloy city gates, entering Wilderness Zone 07. This place was a completely different world from the city. Mutated giant trees towering into the clouds, thick, intertwining vines, damp, rotting air, and an omnipresent sense of being watched from the shadows. Almost every detail reminded them that this wasn't a training ground, but a place where you could actually lose your life. At the instructor's command, thousands of students immediately flooded into the jungle. Most were smart, and chose to team up immediately, groups of 10 or dozens huddling together, clustering, cautiously hunting Tier 1 beasts in the outer areas. After all, for ordinary high school seniors, horned wolves, and iron-skinned pigs, these Tier 1 beasts were dangerous enough. But you didn't join any team. The moment you stepped into the jungle, you detached yourself from the crowd and walked alone into the depths of the forest. The marker points to the bright red, highlighted area on the map, the Tier 2 Exotic Beast Activity Zone. Others fear the danger, so they stick together. But what you want is efficiency. The light in the dense forest is dim. A normal person would be wary of something leaping from behind the trees every few steps. But your mental power has already spread out like an invisible radar. Within a 100-meter radius, every slight movement escapes not your perception. And so, the hunt begins. 30 meters to the front left, a Tier 2 venomous python coiled in a tree is flicking its tongue, waiting for prey to deliver itself. You don't even stop your pace. As you brush past it, space opens and closes. Its head is already gone. A Tier 2 claw cat feeding on remains, incredibly fast, with stunning pouncing ability. But just as it leaps from the bushes, before it even hits the ground, its head vanishes into thin air, leaving only the headless body to roll away by inertia. Then there's the Tier 2 rock pangolin, known for its defense. Its shell is hard enough to withstand ordinary blades and axes, but just as it pokes half its body out of the ground, both shell and flesh are sliced cleanly in 2 by space. With every beast you take down, you casually carve out the crystal core and toss it into your storage space. Skilled movements, calm, efficient, almost no wasted motion, and the numbers on the military point bracelet: 20, 100, 220, 370. On the big screen of the Trial Command Center, your name is like a rocket, soaring from thousands of ranks back, quickly breaking into the top 100, and it's still climbing. However, just as you carve open another venomous python and grab the crystal core, a chill of being locked onto by extreme danger suddenly explodes from your spine. Without a second thought, your body's instinctive reaction is even faster than your consciousness. You dive forward violently, rolling into the nearby bushes. Almost at the exact same moment, a large caliber sniper bullet as thick as a thumb whistles past where you were standing with a piercing shriek, slamming hard into the giant tree behind you. Boom! The tree shatters instantly, splinters flying everywhere. This shot is no longer at a trial level, but a professional assassination. You kneel in the shadow of the bushes, your gaze cold as ice. Large caliber armor-piercing rounds, a precise kill from 1,000 meters away, combined with this clearly pre-planned ambush route. Other than the Zhao family, you can't think of any other possibility. If they want to get rid of you, then none of them are leaving. On the hilltop 1,000 meters away, the sniper is also frowning. He thought this would be the easiest mission possible, but that evasive maneuver just now was too professional to be a student. Instead, it was like a wolf that had survived in the wild for years. Immediately after, the hyena team began to close the circle. 5 people, split into left and right wings plus a frontal push, intending to trap you in a small area as quickly as possible. However, they think they are hunting you, not knowing that the real hunter never stands in the center of the circle waiting to die. Your mental power had already locked onto the positions of all 5, their distance and movement trajectories. Therefore, not only did you not flee, but you hugged the ground and the shadows of the vegetation, ghost-like, cutting back into the thinnest side of their perimeter. The first to fall was number 3. He held a tactical rifle, clearing the front area, completely unaware that the danger wasn't coming from the front, but from above. Just as he passed under a giant ancient tree, you were already hanging upside down from the canopy like a bat. Just as he looked up, you were already within 1 meter. Space opens, covering the helmet and the head, and then closes. Squelch. The sound was so faint it was almost inaudible. That hyena team member didn't even have time to shout a warning before everything above his neck completely vanished. You caught the body, gently leaning it against the tree. Not even a sound of falling was made. Soon, Number 4 was ordered to investigate. He saw a body in a bizarre pose, a torso with a completely empty neck. In that instant, he was completely frozen. Even his report had a noticeable tremor, but in the moment he was distracted. You cut in again from the side shadows, flashing past, taking his head once again. In just 1 minute, the hyena squad had lost 2 men. Moreover, all were silent executions. Now, even the battle-hardened hyena captain truly panicked. He finally realized this wasn't some student job he'd taken, but a devil who could silently reap lives in the shadows. So, he roared for everyone to gather around him, while fully unleashing his ability. C-rank wind ability, Wind Blade Storm. In an instant, countless high-speed rotating cyan wind blades slashed in all directions. Ancient trees, vines, shrubs, all were shredded like they were made of paper. Large areas of cover were forcibly cleared into a chaotic wasteland, and you finally appeared in his line of sight. A savage, manic laugh immediately appeared on the captain's face, thinking he had finally cornered you. At the same time, the sniper a kilometer away, who had been locking onto the area, instantly pinned the crosshairs on your brow, and pulled the trigger without hesitation once more. It was a lethal angle, however. You didn't dodge, just as that specialized armor-piercing round was about to touch your skin, and the spiral air current had already ruffled your bangs. 1 centimeter in front of your brow, a storage space, so small it was nearly invisible, quietly opened, and so, that bullet, capable of piercing tank armor, along with all its destructive kinetic energy, was swallowed whole by the space in an instant. No explosion, no deflection, not even a single proper ripple. The storm dissipated. The dust slowly settled. In the center of the clearing, you were still standing there quietly, completely unscathed. This caused the hyena captain's mind to go blank for a moment, and you slowly turned your head, your gaze crossing a distance of 1,000 meters, precisely landing on the hilltop where the sniper hid. Thin lips parted slightly, uttering only 3 words. Giving it back. The void in front of you opened once more. That bullet, which had just been imprisoned by the space, at the exact same speed it was fired, at the exact same angle, tore back out of the space along the original path. The sniper on the hill didn't even have time to react, only seeing a rapidly expanding black dot appear in the scope. Then, bang, his precision sniper rifle and specialized scope shattered on the spot. The bullet he had fired himself drilled precisely into his right eye, blowing his entire head off. The communication channel was left with only a very short scream, and then fell completely silent. At this moment, the hyena captain finally understood who he had messed with was not some capable student, but a monster. So, his first reaction wasn't to fight, but to flee. He frantically unleashed his wind ability. Gales gathered beneath his feet, turning his body to retreat violently, while condensing his strongest defense in front of him. Wind barrier. But the problem was, wind is an element, but space is the rule that carries the elements. In the face of true spatial laws, that wind wall of his, capable of deflecting shells, was no different from a sheet of paper. You simply walked through it, without resistance, without delay, like passing through a curtain of water, closing in to within a meter of him. Then, raised your hand, grabbed his head, closed, slash, his head flew off. In those eyes, there remained ultimate shock and terror. As for that headless body, froze in place for 2 seconds, then, along with the soaring crimson, fell heavily to the ground. With this, the hyena squad was completely wiped out. From the first shot, until the captain was decapitated, the entire process took less than 3 minutes. You didn't rush to loot the spoils, but check the scene first, because you knew very well that in this kind of professional dirty work, the truly valuable things aren't in the guns, nor in the backpacks, but in the communication records. As expected, soon, you found a military communicator still glowing faintly in the captain's tactical device, and the moment you picked it up, Zhao Xiong's urgent and gloomy voice came through. Hyena, is the job done? The thing I told you to prepare, the beast-attracting incense. Did you use it? Just throw that thing on him, and all beasts within 10 miles will be drawn there. By then, his survival, will be seen by the military as a mere accident. Hearing this, your movements stopped, but the emotion surging in your eyes was no longer just killing intent, because you finally understood what the Zhao family intended this time was never just to use the wilderness to get rid of you. Their real plan was to use the incense to turn the entire outer trial zone into a slaughterhouse, and then use the lives of numerous candidates to pave a path for Zhao Zhe that is dazzling enough and beautiful enough for the first place path. In other words, they want to step over everyone's lives to let Zhao Zhe reach the top. You casually crushed the communicator, then turned and opened the hyena captain's backpack. Soon, a few burnout, dark red incense stubs appeared in your hand. That sickeningly sweet smell almost immediately confirmed Zhao Xiong's words. High concentration beast attracting incense, and, more than one, the Zhao family has gone mad. And at that very moment, the earth began to shake violently, not a slight tremor, but like the earth itself was overturning. Even the soil and fallen leaves beneath your feet were jumping. Then, deafening beast roars echoed from all directions. Giant trees collapsed in sheets. Dust rose into the sky. Countless crimson beast eyes lit up in the forest, charging frantically toward the outer trial zone. A beast tide, a disaster triggered by human hands. A terrifying beast tide far exceeding the level of this trial. With your abilities, you could easily withdraw right now. As long as you hide, no beast could easily find you. But the problem is, if the beast tide really crushes the outer camp, causing massive casualties among the candidates, then this superpower exam, watched by the whole country, is very likely to be postponed, or even cancelled outright. And if that happens, the thing you had planned, to crush Zhao Zhe with your own hands in front of everyone, to claim the top, and take that third-tier energy core, would be completely ruined by the Zhao family. Since that's the case, this beast tide is something you cannot ignore. Your path, no one is allowed to block, not the Zhao family, and certainly not these creatures, either. So, you did not retreat. Instead, facing the torrent of beasts capable of swallowing everything, you charged straight forward. At the same time, Outer Zone C of Wilderness Area 07 had fallen into complete chaos. Su Shui was leading a dozen students to hold the line. She erected ice walls one after another, barely blocking the first wave of horned wolves and iron-skinned pigs. But upon those ice walls, cracks soon began to spread. The beasts outside slammed into them like madmen, tearing and biting. The students' faces turned pale one by one, clearly on the verge of collapse. Someone cried out, asking what to do, while others mentioned Zhao Zhe in panic. Didn't he always claim to be the strongest? Why is he nowhere to be seen at a time like this? Then, someone screamed out, voice trembling, "Don't count on him!" When the horned wolf pounced, he pushed Li Ming out to block it, and ran away himself. These words completely extinguished everyone's last shred of hope. Zhao Zhe, the rich young master who usually flaunted his power, and showered Su Shui with attentiveness, in a true life-or-death moment, the first thing he did was use a classmate's life to buy himself time to escape. Su Shui was shocked and furious, but she had no time to waste on cursing, because the next wave of attack had already arrived. Seeing the ice wall about to shatter completely, she could only grit her teeth and forcibly overdraw her ability, pressing both hands against the ground, unleashing her area of effect trump card, Ice Age! In an instant, an ice-blue cold current surged outward, instantly covering the area for nearly 100 meters in frost. A dozen Tier 1 beasts charging forward were frozen solid into ice sculptures. The situation was briefly suppressed by her force. However, a skill of this level was too great a burden for her current state. As soon as the skill ended, she suddenly spat out a mouthful of fluid, falling to one knee, her face turning deathly pale. Her internal energy was almost depleted, and just then, at the very moment she was exhausted, boom! The ground in front of her violently exploded, soil and rubble soaring into the sky. A terrifying beast over 15 meters long, covered in thick black armor, resembling a prehistoric giant crocodile with a hideous single horn, burst out from beneath the earth. A Tier 3 commander-level beast, the ironclad Earth Dragon. The moment it appeared, all the students fell into despair, because this was something that should never have appeared in a senior year trial, and certainly not something these students, already pushed to their limits by Tier 1 beasts, could possibly handle. Su Shui understood this as well. Her energy was drained, her body so weak she couldn't even lift a finger. She could only watch helplessly as the ironclad Earth Dragon lowered its massive head, opened its maw full of fangs, and snapped viciously toward her. A strong, fishy wind blasted her face. Death was within reach. She closed her eyes in despair. Just then, whoosh, a black meteor tore through the dim canopy of the forest. From atop the treetops dozens of meters high, in a posture that defied the laws of physics, plummeting violently. Thud, a crash so heavy it shook the earth once more. That black shadow, like a meteorite, slammed heavily half a meter in front of Su Shui. A violent blast of air mixed with shattered soil exploded in all directions, even forcing the ironclad earth dragon's massive head to recoil. Su Shui snapped her eyes open. What she saw was a back, a figure not particularly hulking, yet one that seemed capable of supporting the entire sky. He wore a faded, washed-out backpack. Standing there silently, beneath him was a terrifying crater half a meter deep. At his feet was the fanged maw of the ironclad earth dragon, just inches away. Lin An, time seemed to have been paused at this moment. The wild wind lifted your bangs. You still held the standard-issue combat blade seized from the hyena squad's remains. Though that figure wasn't tall, he was like a mountain, firmly standing between Su Shui and that Tier 3 commander, shielding everything behind him from the storm of blood and gore. Su Shui was stunned at first, then her expression changed drastically, shouting out in alarm, "Lin An, are you crazy? Run! That's a Tier 3 commander-level beast. Even armor-piercing rounds can't penetrate its defense. You'll be killed." However, you didn't even look back. The ironclad earth dragon was clearly infuriated, opening its mouth to roar, the sound wave knocking out the surrounding students. Then, its massive spiked tail swept across like a giant steel whip. Giant trees along the way, and rocks shattered one after another, devastating everything in its path. If you met it head-on, you would surely lose. But if you retreated, everyone behind you will meet the same fate. In a flash, your mind had already made its decision. A cubic meter of space cannot contain the entire head of this beast. Conventional cuts are useless against it. To take it down, you must strike at its weakest point, aim straight for the vitals. And so, the moment that steel-whipped dragon tail was about to strike, your waist suddenly bent backward at an impossible angle, narrowly dodging the blow by a hair's breadth. Immediately after, instead of retreating, you used the momentum to kick off with both legs, launching yourself like a reverse cannonball toward the ironclad earth dragon. Su Shui's face turned pale. In her eyes, this wasn't a counterattack, but a suicide mission. Sure enough, seeing its attack miss, the ironclad earth dragon raised a massive claw, like a small truck, and stomped down toward your head. But just then, the moment the shadow completely engulfed you, you suddenly dropped your body low, in an extreme sliding tackle, narrowly sliding through the gap beneath the claw and right under its belly. Boom! The giant claw smashed the ground, instantly blasting a deep crater. Su Shui witnessed this through the gaps in her fingers, completely stunned. She knew, of course, that the belly was the ironclad earth dragon's relatively weakest spot. But that was only relative. The scales there were still ridiculously thick, impossible for ordinary attacks to penetrate. But you never intended to break the armor. Beneath the beast, the space was narrow, foul-smelling slime mixed with mud dripping constantly. You steadied yourself, casually tossing aside the now useless alloy combat knife. Then, looking up, relying on your perception, you locked onto the violently beating heart inside its body. The next second, you slowly raised both hands, and pressed them firmly against the cold, hard scales. Not a slash, not a charge, but an almost eerie touch. Silently, spatial fluctuations penetrated the scales, opening directly inside the ironclad earth dragon's chest. At this moment, your eyes were as cold as a judgment. Now, shatter. As the command fell, a cubic meter of absolute darkness precisely enveloped the car-sized heart, and then snapped shut violently. Squelch. A dull, muffled cutting sound echoed from within its body. The ironclad earth dragon's heaven-shaking roar came to an abrupt halt. Its massive body suddenly froze, the brutality and madness in its crimson vertical pupils quickly fading, leaving only the primal bewilderment and fear of a creature. Though it looked completely unharmed from the outside, it could clearly feel that the source of all its strength had suddenly vanished. Taking advantage of its momentary paralysis, you slid out from under its belly. You didn't even look back. 2 seconds later, the mountain-like steel beast completely lost its support and crashed down with a roar. The earth trembled amidst the swirling dust. Su Shui stared blankly at the beast with no external wounds. Yet the Tier 3 commander had already ceased breathing. She felt as if her soul had been sucked out. Her ice age couldn't even stall it for a moment. Yet you, mocked by everyone as an E-rank mediocrity, had killed it instantly, with just a single touch. This was no longer a gap in strength. This was something she simply could not comprehend. And you had already walked to the side of the beast, with a thought, a heart as huge as a tire, with a top cut as smooth as a mirror, plopped onto the muddy ground. Expressionlessly you reached in, and quickly pulled out a fist-sized, pitch-black, rhombic crystal that looked as if lava were flowing inside. Tier 3 Commander level, Earth Dragon Crystal Core. Su Shui finally managed to regain some composure, her voice dry. Lin An, who exactly are? But you only gave her a cold glance. Out of the way. 3 words, shutting down all her questions instantly. Then, you grabbed the ironclad Earth Dragon's hideous horn, took a deep breath, and actually hauled the multi-ton behemoth up by force, dragging it step by step toward the trial camp, that not-so-burly silhouette, dragging a beast as massive as a mountain, amidst the dark forest, and the roar of beasts filling the sky, like a painting of gods and demons descending to earth. Su Shui stared blankly at this scene. Then she thought of Zhao Zhe, who abandoned his classmates to flee. Her disgust and contempt reached their peak. At the same time, your silhouette was etched into her mind like a brand. And meanwhile, the temporary camp in Wilderness Zone 07 was in total chaos. The outer perimeter was on the verge of collapse. Soldiers were desperately organizing the students' retreat. Inside the command center, the colonel stared at the mass of red dots closing in on the radar. His face was grim. He was furiously reprimanding the intelligence department. Just then, Zhao Zhe came rushing in, stumbling and crawling. He collapsed to the ground, crying out in tears, "Sir, I know how the beast tide started. It was Lin An. It was that E-grade mediocrity." The colonel frowned, and told him to explain clearly. So, Zhao Zhe immediately began to distort the truth, saying you got some high-concentration beast-attracting incense from somewhere, and threw it everywhere, even claiming you'd drag everyone down with you. In other words, he wanted to take advantage of your presumed death in the beast tide, to dump all the blame on you at once, and wash himself clean as the one who revealed the truth. A hero. Seeing the colonel's expression grow darker, Zhao Zhe felt a secret joy, just as he was about to add fuel to the fire. But right at that moment, a set of footsteps heavy enough to shake the ground echoed from the camp entrance. Thump. The sound drew closer and closer, as if every step were stomping on everyone's heart. Soon, the mist was slowly torn apart, under the terrified gazes of everyone. You, dragging that mountain-like Tier 3 commander with one hand, the massive body of the ironclad Earth Dragon, stepped into the camp, covered in mud, with a cold expression, like a demon god who had just emerged from purgatory. You ignored everyone, and walked straight up to Zhao Zhe. Then, the hyena squad's tactical backpack in your other hand, and the communicator you had crushed into scrap metal, were slammed violently at his feet. The Zhao family needs to give me an explanation. Did you drop these? Dead silence. It was as if all sound had been sucked out of the camp instantly. The grief and indignation on Zhao Zhe's face froze immediately, replaced by absolute terror. He turned as pale as a ghost. He even blurted out, "You're not dead." Only after saying it did he realize he had practically confessed. You didn't bother with him. You kicked the backpack aside, the burnout dark red incense stub, the hyena captain's ID tag, and the communicator that was still flickering, rolled out. Then, you pressed the play button. Zhao Xiong's gloomy and urgent voice immediately echoed through the camp via the amplifier. "Just throw that thing on him, and all Tier 2 beasts within 10 miles will be drawn to him. By then, not even his bones will remain, and the military will simply rule it an accident." The evidence was irrefutable. The crowd erupted instantly. It really was the Zhao family, hiring killers to murder someone. They wanted to kill us all. "Zhao Zhe, you scum!" The colonel's expression became incredibly grim at this moment. But Zhao Zhe still wouldn't give up, screaming while collapsed on the ground, saying, "How could an E-grade like you possibly take down the hyena squad? How could you possibly drag back the body of a Tier 3 Earth Dragon? This is all a frame-up." Hearing this, you finally let out a cold sneer. You raised your hand, showing a stained student monitoring bracelet. "You mean, an E-grade just happened to pick up the evidence of your crimes?" The next second, you forcibly bypassed the bracelet's permissions. The footage was projected onto the command center's giant screen. In the footage, as a horned wolf lunged, not only did Zhao Zhe not save anyone, he actually pushed Li Ming in front of him as a shield, while he fled without looking back. The camera finally froze on his face, distorted and hideous with excitement. If the recording only made people angry, then this footage completely ignited the intent to kill. "Zhao Zhe, give my brother's life back. Scum like this doesn't deserve to live." Just at this moment, Su Shui arrived, supported by several girls. Her face was pale, but she still gritted her teeth to testify in public. "I can prove. Zhao Zhe abandoned his classmates to flee for his life, and it was Lin An who saved us all." With the public testimony of an S-class genius, Zhao Zhe's last bit of struggle ankle was completely crushed. The colonel took a deep breath, turned around abruptly, ordered the enforcement team to seize Zhao Zhe, detain him, hand him over to the military court for the highest level trial. Zhao Zhe completely broke down, screaming wretchedly for his father. Just as the enforcement team was about to seize him, "Who dares touch my son?" A thunderous roar exploded, a terrifying fifth-rank pressure that froze the air, swept across the entire scene. The students all knelt down simultaneously. The weaker ones simply fainted. Then, a luxurious middle-aged figure instantly appeared before Zhao Zhe, protecting him behind his back. The head of the Zhao family, Zhao Xiong. He didn't even look at the evidence on the ground, but stared intently at you, killing intent surging in his eyes. "Kid, how dare you slander my son, and ruin the reputation of the Zhao family? No one can save you today." Before he finished speaking, a giant energy claw slashed down hard toward your head. "Fifth rank. Is it strong?" You stood your ground, with not a hint of fear in your eyes. Instead, only a desire for destruction after being completely enraged. Space began to distort silently before your brow, preparing to risk severe injury, just to disable Zhao Xiong's arm first. But just then, at this critical moment, presumptuous, a roar more domineering than Zhao Xiong's, suddenly exploded in front of you. At some unknown moment, the colonel had already stepped in front of you. He made no flashy movements, just a simple punch. As a result, Zhao Xiong's energy claw shattered piece by piece on the spot. The terrifying punch force slammed into Zhao Xiong's chest, sending him flying back, spitting blood, crashing through several military tents before falling miserably, severely wounding a sixth rank. The colonel slowly retracted his fist, his gaze frighteningly cold. "In our military camp, publicly attacking a military witness and the top performer of this trial, Zhao Xiong. Do you want the entire Zhao family to be buried with you?" This single sentence completely sealed the fate of the Zhao father and son. Soon, Zhao Xiong and Zhao Zhe were dragged away like sacks of trash. As for the conspiracy meticulously designed by the Zhao family, it was completely exposed in full view of everyone. The camp fell silent. When all the students looked at you again, their eyes had changed from shock to awe, and even fear. And when the colonel turned to look at you, the anger in his eyes had vanished, replaced by undisguised admiration and passion. "Lin An, you slew a third-rank commander, the armored Earth Dragon, exposed a criminal, saved your classmates, with outstanding merit. The command center has unanimously decided that you are the first place of this joint trial." As he spoke, he took a special metal box from his adjutant and handed it to you. "This is your reward, a third-rank Earth Dragon energy core." Then, he extended an invitation that would drive countless people wild. "Additionally, on behalf of the Eastern Military Region, I formally invite you. Are you interested in skipping all the procedures and joining directly the Azure Dragon Special Forces?" You took the box, feeling the surging energy inside. The weight in your heart finally lifted a little, but then, you still looked up and slowly shook your head. "I'm sorry, sir. Before joining the army, I must use this first, to save my sister's life." You rushed all the way back to the first central hospital, but unfortunately, fate seemed to be mocking you on purpose. When you pushed open the ICU room door, the expected image of your sister sleeping peacefully did not appear. Instead, was a piercing alarm that tore through your eardrums. The ward was as cold as an ice cellar. Lin Xia, on the hospital bed, was covered in a visible layer of frost. Even the metal rails and bedding edges were frosted with jagged ice crystals. Her lips were purple, and the rise and fall of her chest was so faint it had nearly stopped. The data on the monitor was flashing red frantically. Your mind went blank with a buzz. As you rushed to the attending physician, your voice hoarse. "What happened? Wasn't she fine before I left?" The doctor was drenched in cold sweat, speaking so fast he could barely breathe. "It mutated. The abyssal cold transformation within your sister's body suddenly underwent a malignant mutation. That cold energy seems to have gained a consciousness of its own, rejecting and devouring all external energy. The mild energy fluid we just tried to inject was completely frozen." At this point, he looked at the metal case in your hand, his eyes seeing it as both a lifeline and a death sentence. "The energy of a Tier 3 Earth Dragon core is too violent. Using it now won't save her, but will be like pouring water into boiling oil, instantly igniting the cold energy in her body and turning her into ice crystals on the spot." These words instantly shattered the hope you had fought so hard for. You froze in place, slowly looking at the little girl on the bed whose eyelashes were frosted. All emotion was drained from your face, leaving only a peace following an extreme dead silence. "Then, what do we do?" The doctor swallowed hard, giving the only answer. "Within 3 days, you must find a core with perfectly matching attributes and purest energy, a Tier 4 Ice Soul Crystal core. Only only by using it to soothe, rather than fight the mutated cold energy, will there be a chance of survival. 3 days. A Tier 4 Ice Soul Crystal Core. This was almost harder than facing death. Tier 4 cores are strategic resources in themselves, let alone an Ice Soul Crystal Core, a rarity even among its tier. It's virtually impossible to find one on the open market. Even if the military armory had one, it wasn't something you could access. So, you didn't ask any more useless questions, but silently walked out of the ward, stood at the end of the hallway, took out that old black phone, and sent an encrypted message. Tier 4 Ice Soul Crystal Core. Time limit, 3 days. Price, regardless. The phone replied almost instantly. Open market, none. Military armory, 3. Insufficient clearance. Unable to exchange. Only lead. Tonight. Jiangcheng Underground. Shura Field. 100-man slaughter. Reward for the final winner of the challenge. The Shura Field. The bloodiest place in Jiangcheng's underground world. The most insane lawless land. The 100-man slaughter. One single night. Fighting 100 desperados consecutively. Chosen from prisons, battlefields, and the wastelands. A fight to the death, with no breaks in between. In 100 years, only 3 have succeeded. The failure rate was nearly 100%. But you glanced back at the ICU door with its red light, and all hesitation vanished from your eyes. Since there was no other choice, you would carve a path through blood. Midnight, the old industrial zone, an abandoned steel smelting plant converted into a giant underground arena. The air was thick with the smell of sweat, alcohol, and other foul odors. Heavy metal music thundered, deafening everyone. Thousands of spectators roared like madmen, wearing that pale, rigid smiling mask. As you walked into the backstage registration area, the burly man with a scorpion tattoo in charge of registration just glanced at you, then sneered and told you to get lost, saying this was the Shura Field, not a place for children to play house. You didn't waste words with him. You simply picked up the stained life and death contract, then bit hard into your thumb. Blood welled up, and expressionlessly you pressed that warm, bloody fingerprint firmly onto the signature line. Then you looked up, staring at him through the rigid, smiling mask. Stop talking. Arrange 100 people. Step aside. Still queuing. That burly man had spent over a decade in the Shura Field. He had seen desperados, and he had seen madmen, but a single glance from you still sent a chill down his spine. He didn't say another word. He simply handed you a black number tag, 9527. Then, you turned, and walked toward that iron gate leading to hell. Round 1. The opponent was Black Ape, a peak second stage beast transformation ability user, over 2.5 meters tall, covered in black fur, possessing immense strength, famous for his brutality. The audience was initially jeering and mocking, thinking your frail frame wouldn't even be a snack for him. However, as the referee called start, the ape roared and lunged. His massive palm seemed about to crush your head on the spot. But the moment before he touched you, you simply stepped aside slightly, slipping past that massive body. Squelch. After a soft sound, the black ape crashed violently into the iron cage. Then, under the gaze of thousands, his head, still wearing a ferocious grin, slid smoothly off his neck. Crimson blood soared into the air. The entire arena fell silent at first, then erupted into total chaos. The name 9527 echoed through the Shura Field for the first time, but immediately after, Round 2, Round 5, Round 10, Round 37, everyone gradually realized that what they were seeing was not a competition, but a one-sided harvest. A speed-type ability user moved like an afterimage, but as soon as he approached you, his body was sliced in half. A fire manipulator rained flames everywhere, yet you walked through them like a gentle curtain, stepping right in front of him. The next second, his head rolled across the floor. From then on, whether it was a frontal assault, a sneak attack, long range, or an ambush, the result was always the same. One hit, one kill, no wasted moves, no flashy clashes, not even a proper fighting process. You simply approached, and then, the opponent fell. Thus, the cheers from the audience grew fewer, replaced by an oppressive silence and the sound of gasps, because everyone could see that you weren't here to challenge the 100-man kill. You were clearing the field. You were harvesting. When the 99th round ended, the referee announced in a trembling voice, the winner, 9527. You were already standing in the center of the fallen crowd. The ground beneath you stained crimson. That pale smiling mask had long been stained dark red by the fluid, and as you stood there, even your breathing hadn't faltered. The entire Shura Field was deathly silent. At the same time, in the luxury box on the top floor, Lord Jin's expression was terrifyingly grim. That Tier 4 Eye Soul Crystal Core was originally placed here as a gimmick by a big shot from the city. No one ever intended for it to actually be taken. But now, you were just one step away from claiming it. Lord Jean sneered, and pressed the red button on the wall. Activate the sweeper protocol. Let the Titan enter the ring. Rumble. Inside the octagonal cage, the giant gate leading to the final challenge, forged from a special alloy, slowly rose. A ferocious aura 100 times more terrifying than all previous opponents combined, like a tangible torrent, surged out from the darkness behind the gate. A giant nearly 3 meters tall, with muscles like cast steel, and skin with a bronze metallic luster, stepped out slowly. With every step he takes, the entire octagon cage trembles slightly. In the spectator stands, the silent crowd suddenly erupts in terrified screams. It's Titan, the indestructible Titan. My God, wasn't he locked in the lowest level of the prison? How did he get out? Now that masked man is finished. Titan is a monster who once tore apart a Tier 4 mutated beast with his bare hands. Titan walks into the center, ignoring the fallen people scattered across the floor. Those bulging eyes lock onto you firmly. He grins, revealing a set of stark white teeth. Titan's voice sounds like rusty iron plates rubbing together. Calm, yet more chilling than a roar. Kid, your killing game ends here. Now, it's my turn. The audience freezes for a moment, then erupts into even louder screams. Everyone recognizes this nearly 3-meter-tall monster with a body shimmering in bronze metallic luster. Titan the Scavenger, the true ultimate weapon hidden at the bottom of the Shura field. Rumor has it his Tier 4 absolute hardening makes his body even harder than top-grade alloy armor. Ordinary cutting abilities are completely useless against him, but unexpectedly, you don't even bother to say a word. The next second, your figure vanishes from the spot. When you reappear, you are already ghosting to Titan's left side. The military knife carves a dark arc, heading straight for his neck. This strike even carries a hint of basic spatial compression power. Forget flesh and blood. Even tank armor should be sliced clean open. However, clang! A piercing shriek suddenly explodes. Sparks fly everywhere. The knife in your hand, which cuts iron like butter, actually shatters piece by piece the moment it touches his skin. As for Titan's neck, only a faint white mark remains, disappearing almost instantly. Titan finally laughs. The laughter makes the entire octagon cage shake. Little bug, I told you, your little cutting tricks are useless against me. Before the words fade, he throws a backhand punch. No flashy energy, no complex moves, only pure power condensed to the extreme. Fast, too fast. You can clearly see his trajectory, but your body can't dodge it in time. You can only cross your arms in front of your chest in an instant. This punch is like a maglev train colliding at full speed, slamming violently into you. You are sent flying backward, crashing into the alloy mesh. The mesh instantly bulges outward in a giant human-shaped dent. Then, a mouthful of liquid surges from under the mask, staining the combat suit on your chest red. The whole place goes silent instantly, then erupts into even wilder cheers. Those who were too terrified to speak after you slashed 99 people now seem to have found an outlet, screaming desperately, waiting to see how you get crushed. In the private box, Lord Jean picks up his wine glass again, his expression contemptuous and relaxed. In his eyes, you are ultimately just a guy relying on eerie tricks to commit violence, while Titan represents true power. However, leaning against the mesh, you slowly wipe the liquid from the corner of your mouth, but your eyes remain cold and rippleless. You have already reached a conclusion. Conventional spatial cutting is not absolutely invincible. When the target's material density and energy structure exceed a certain threshold, the resulting closure, sheer force, will be greatly weakened. In other words, cutting hard from the outside cannot break through his defense in a short time. But the problem is, you don't have time to waste. Your sister is still waiting for you in the hospital. The Tier 4 Eye Soul Crystal Core is right before your eyes. Since the outside doesn't work, then from the inside, you straighten your body again. Seeing this, Titan has a hint of mockery in his eyes. Still moving. Seems I didn't use enough strength just now. You still didn't answer. But once again, you charged forward. To everyone, this was like a moth to a flame. Titan thought so too. So this time, he didn't even bother to punch. Instead, he grinned and opened his arms, intending to crush you to death, squeezing bones and organs into powder. 10 meters, 5 meters, 3 meters. The moment they were about to collide, your body suddenly dropped, avoiding his chest that pressed down like a mountain. Like a slick shadow, you slipped past his side. At the same time, your right hand opened, lightly pressing against his temple. That movement was like an intimate caress. The manic laugh on Titan's face hadn't faded yet, while in the depths of your eyes, only extreme coldness and madness remained. Space. Open. This time, it wasn't an external cut, nor was it closing to take the head. Directly inside his indestructible skull, in the core brain area protected by layers of thick bone, you forcibly opened a millimeter-sized spatial void. It existed for only an instant, and then returned to normal. The most fundamental laws of the universe completed a cycle of creation and annihilation in a billionth of a second. Titan froze. His gaze, expression, movements, all froze in this moment. Then, a streak of crimson liquid slowly flowed from his left ear, then the right ear, nostrils, corners of the eyes. 7 streaks of fluid slowly flowed down that bronze face, painting a pattern of extreme eeriness. The next second, that mountain-like body fell straight back, crashing heavily onto the octagon floor. A Tier 4 physical enhancement expert, Scavenger Titan, died on the spot. The entire Shura field instantly felt as if a mute button had been pressed. The music stopped. The screaming stopped. Every expression froze on every face. Thousands of eyes stared intently at the body leaking fluid from its 7 orifices, then looked at you standing beside it. No wounds, no struggle, only one touch, and then, a god fell. After a brief deathly silence, a wine glass in a wealthy businessman's hand in the front row shattered on the floor, like a switch being flipped. The next second, the entire venue completely exploded. Countless spectators screamed, crying and pushing their way out, wanting only to escape this purgatory-like place. But you ignored the chaos. You looked up, through the layers of the crowd, gazing at the luxury box on the top floor. Your voice was slightly raspy from your injuries, yet it remained cold and clear. The 100 battles are over. The Tier 4 Eye Soul Crystal Core. Give it to me. As the words fell, the crowd paused for a moment. Yes, you won. The 100-man slay is complete. According to the rules, the prize should belong to you. However, Lord Jean clearly never intended to follow the rules. He stood before the microphone, his sneer echoing through the speakers across the venue. 9,527. You indeed gave me a surprise. Unfortunately, do you think those little tricks could fool everyone? Titan's body was harder than battleship armor, yet he fell silently, without even a decent wound. This is clearly the work of a curse kill type, or the use of forbidden neurotoxins. Therefore, you have cheated. According to the iron rules of the Shura field, once a challenger uses a forbidden technique, the result is void, and the prize is confiscated. As soon as these words were spoken, the venue erupted in uproar once more. A scam within a scam. Everyone understood instantly. Lord Jean was no longer interested in just a crystal core, but it's that defense ignoring, eerie secret technique that strikes the heart. He wants to swallow the treasure, along with it. Then, he added with feigned generosity, however, I can give you a way out. Hand over your secret technique, and I'll let you live. I might even let you be the most valuable dog under my command. You stand your ground, slowly looking up. At this moment, the last bit of rules, patience in your eyes, completely shattered. You played by their rules, fighting through 100 kills with your life and pain. But now, the house tells you, you won, but I don't recognize it. Then there's nothing left to say. You simply let out a soft laugh. Heh. Lord Jean was clearly infuriated by that laugh, and immediately ordered, seize him, dead or alive. I want his secret. The next instant, the 8 alloy gates of the octagon rose simultaneously. Squads of fully armed soldiers in black exoskeleton armor, conglomerate private troops with kinetic rifles, surged out of the darkness like a tide. The dark muzzles, sights flashing with eerie blue electricity, all locked onto you at the same time. A full 100 men, and every single one was a seasoned veteran. The audience completely panicked. Survivors hammered on the doors frantically. Everyone knew the Shura field scavenger units, once deployed, would turn this place into a real slaughterhouse. And you, standing in the center of the circle, slowly dropped the shattered remains of the dagger. Since they don't play by the rules, then your rules are the rules. Fire! At the captain's command, over 100 rifles fired simultaneously. Dense alloyed bullets tore through the air, weaving a death net with no blind spots from all directions, instantly swallowing your figure completely. Gunsmoke, fire, shrieks, explosions erupting. Yet, after the gunfire ceased, you were still standing there, completely unscathed. Within 1 meter of your body, space had warped into an eerie, distorting mirror state. Thousands of alloyed bullets capable of piercing tanks were all pulled into that distorted zone, hovering in midair like insects trapped in amber. Their kinetic energy was forcibly stripped and imprisoned, and after squeezing and rubbing in the narrow space, the bullets even began to glow crimson, humming incessantly. All the private soldiers were stunned. They had seen bulletproof shields, seen energy barriers, and seen espers tanking bullets with their bodies, but never anyone who could stop bullets in midair. This isn't defense. This is a prohibition. You raised your hand toward that distorted space where the storm of death hovered and gently clenched. Now, it's my turn. You suddenly turned, sweeping your arm. That pocket of space imprisoning thousands of crimson bullets was flung directly toward the densest squad of soldiers on the left. At the same time, space returned to normal. All the stripped kinetic energy was returned in a single instant. Swish, 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 swish. No gunfire, only the shrieks of air being torn apart. Those bullets surged back faster than they arrived, forming a fan-shaped crimson barrage. Several front-row soldiers didn't even have time to react before being shot through. Exoskeleton armor, bone, flesh, all became a joke in that instant. A massive cloud of red mist exploded, staining the entire battlefield crimson. The survivors were terrified on the spot. Some retreated, some screamed, some recklessly threw high-explosive grenades and Molotov cocktails, attempting to drown you in even greater firepower. However, you didn't even look. The explosion, the raging flames, the shockwaves, flying shrapnel, not only failed to hurt you, but were entirely swallowed by that distorted space once again. A few cubic meters of space, in this moment, became like a small star on the verge of losing control, filled with pure and violent explosive energy. And then, you charged in. You strolled through the sea of fire just like that, approaching the completely chaotic private army formation, your eyes locked onto the captain who was trying to flee. Then, you released the spatial constraint, giving it back to you. Boom! The maximally compressed explosive energy was released instantly, turning into a fireball of death over 10 meters wide centered on you, sweeping in all directions. A dozen private soldiers caught in the direct blast were vaporized on the spot along with their armor. Those on the periphery were first ignited by the high heat, then torn apart by a massive amount of high-speed shrapnel. Even their screams were blown to pieces. This was no longer a battle. This was a massacre. Your spatial power became the most terrifying mobile armory right here. The stronger the enemy's firepower, the more lethal what you returned became. The so-called numerical advantage, firepower suppression, before the true laws of space, was nothing but a joke. Soon, only wails and the sound of burning remained in the entire venue. The private army captain, who luckily survived the first blast, dragging his half-charred body, crawled toward the top floor box using both hands and feet, crying out for help. Inside the box, Lord Jean had already collapsed into the sofa, looking at that living hell on the monitor. Only naked terror remained on his face. Before, he thought you had merely mastered some hidden killing move. But now, he finally understood that the person he provoked wasn't just a lunatic who knew secret arts, but a complete and utter monster. So, he turned and ran. However, he had barely taken 2 steps when a loud bang echoed behind him. That private army captain, like a torn sack, was kicked straight through the box door, rolling to his feet. The captain made a few gurgling sounds, raised a finger to point at the door, then his head tilted, and he breathed his last. Lord Jean turned his head stiffly. In the dust outside the door, you slowly walked in. You were covered in grime. That pale smiling mask had long been stained dark red. The eyes beneath the mask were terrifyingly calm. You didn't waste any words. You just went to that special bulletproof glass said to withstand armor-piercing rounds in front of it. Slowly raised your right hand, and gently pressed your 5 fingers against it. The next second, centered on your palm, spiderweb-like black cracks began to spread across the glass surface. That wasn't ordinary shattering. That was space itself being torn apart. Lord Jean finally broke down completely, screaming for you to stop. He even brought up the Bastion, the military origin of the glass, then offered money, used the Wong family's background, used so-called heavy rewards to beg for his life. Unfortunately, these words weren't even a whisper to you. Your 5 fingers, crack, hum, after a strange, muffled thud. That heavy special bulletproof glass and the half-meter thick alloy wall were completely ripped out by you, leaving a perfect circular hole 3 meters in diameter in the wall. The massive circular wall section crashed down, shaking the entire box. Lord Jin's last shred of security was shattered along with it. He fell to his knees with a thud, kowtowing frantically. Snot and tears smeared across his face. Don't do it. I'll give you the thing. I'll give it all. The Tier 4 Eye Soul crystal core is in the safe. You grabbed his hair in one go, lifted him entirely off the ground, dragged him to the hidden compartment like a sack. After iris and fingerprint verification, the safe slowly opened. A surge of bone-chilling air instantly filled the room. Lord Jean tremblingly held out a blue metal box, holding it high above his head. You take the box, opening it with one hand. Inside is a fist-sized, crystal clear, crystal core with an ice blue storm swirling inside. Immediately catches your eye. That extreme, pure chill makes the space power within you tremble slightly. It's the real deal. You immediately store it in your space, and seeing the item handed over, Lord Jing, actually still wants to beg for his life, even bringing up that he's from the Wang family of the provincial city, hoping to use his background to survive. Unfortunately, before he could finish his sentence, an invisible blade flashes by. His voice cuts off abruptly. Head and body are instantly separated, rolling and slamming onto the ground. Liquid sprays out from the throat, splattering across half your body. You kick away the still twitching corpse, your tone cold and devoid of emotion. I don't care who you are. If you don't pull the weed by the root, it will eventually bite back. This kind of thing you learned long ago in the dark alleys of the slums. After getting the item, you don't leave immediately. Instead, you slice through the main gas pipe in the corner. High-pressure gas hisses out piercingly, quickly filling the entire private room. Then, you light a lighter and toss the flame into this luxurious tomb of sin. Then, you turn around and walk out without looking back. Seconds later, boom, a world-shaking explosion erupts from the top floor. Flames and shockwaves sweep through the underground slaughterhouse like an angry dragon. Steel twists, walls collapse. This place that devoured countless lives finally meets its deserved destruction, while you, facing the fire and heatwave behind you, walk step by step up the stairs to the surface. When you push open the heavy iron door, the blinding morning light spills onto your face. You raise your hand, slowly removing the dark red smiling mask, revealing a pale yet sharp and cold young face. Soul Crystal Core, secured. Next is saving my sister. As for the other debts, I'll settle them another day. In the early hours of the morning, you practically crashed through the silence of the hospital. The doctor on duty was still drowsy, but when you take that cold box containing the Tier 4 Soul Crystal Core and slam it heavily onto the table, he is instantly wide awake. His voice even cracks. A Tier 4 Soul Crystal Core. Soon, the entire special care ward is lit up again. Top physicians, sterile laboratories, dilution procedures, energy guidance, a series of operations that would normally be impossible to complete so quickly, were all forcibly set in motion by this crystal core. You stand outside the sterile observation room, staring intently at Lin Xia on the bed through the glass. The diluted ice blue energy is injected into her body bit by bit through precision instruments. At first, the life curve on the monitor is still fluctuating wildly. You can almost hear the heart racing. However, a moment later, the change finally appears. The layer of lethal frost on her face begins to slowly recede. The bluish tint of her lips gradually returns to normal. The heartbeat, once so weak it nearly vanished, from 30. 40, slowly rises, finally stabilizing within the normal range. The piercing alarms that filled the room also go silent one by one, until the first ray of morning sunlight hits the corridor. The attending physician finally removes his mask. Exhausted, yet unable to hide his excitement. It's a success. Her bodily functions have stabilized. Now she just needs quiet rest to recover. These words are like the sudden removal of your final support. Your nerves, taut for half a month, finally relax completely. An overwhelming wave of fatigue instantly floods your body. You just sit there by the bedside, watching your sister's sleeping face finally regain some color. Your eyelids can no longer hold up, and you fall into a deep sleep. This is the first time in a long while that you've had such a peaceful sleep, but you don't know that the massive Tier 4 cold energy within Lin Xia, after stabilizing her life, still has a tiny fraction remaining. That strand of extremely pure energy, following an indescribable bloodline connection between siblings, silently flows into your body. For the entire Tier 4 crystal core, this residue is insignificant, but for you right now, it's enough to trigger a true metamorphosis. After an unknown amount of time, you suddenly wake up. At first, it was a sharp, intense pain, as if a steel needle was violently stirring in your mind. But immediately after, this pain was completely overwhelmed by a soul-elevating pleasure. You clearly felt the invisible barrier deep in your mind that once limited your spatial ability was shattered by this surge of external energy. Mental threshold breached. Spatial control surged. You immediately looked inward at your ability core, and then, your breath hitched for a moment. That storage space, which was originally only 1 cubic meter, now seemed to be forcibly torn open, expanding. The volume surged wildly. 2 cubic meters, 5 cubic meters, 10 cubic meters. In just a few breaths, the space that was once like a small box expanded directly into a warehouse. However, this wasn't the most important part. The moment the expansion was complete, a sliver of a brand new law imprint was quietly engraved into the spatial core. With a slight thought, you stored a glass of water from the nightstand into the space. Immediately after, you activated that new imprint. The swaying water surface in the glass instantly froze. Even a droplet about to fall in midair suspended eerily. Time, in that space, It was as if the pause button had been pressed. You instantly understood the meaning of this new ability. Absolute stasis. Any non-living entity or energy body stored in the space, its state would be absolutely locked. If a living creature were forcibly stored, then its biological activities would approach zero within the space, equivalent to being locked in a time-frozen cage. What does this mean? It means that from now on, you can not only store more warheads, flames, explosions and shockwaves, but also, the moment an enemy attacks, directly take the attack, or even parts of their limbs, store into the space. What's more terrifying is, you could even briefly store a part of your own body in the space, and then release it from another location, creating an eerie strike akin to teleportation. This is no longer a quantitative change, but a qualitative leap. You clenched your fists, feeling the unprecedented surge of spatial power within you. A cold glint flickered in your eyes. Now, even if you face a true fifth-rank powerhouse head-on, you are no longer forced to gamble your life. And right at that moment, on the public TV outside the ward, an impassioned news report was broadcasting. The highly anticipated National Joint Exam for Higher Ability Academies has officially begun in the capital, Jingqing. From the Federation's major conglomerates, top clans and military systems, hundreds of S-rank and A-rank geniuses have gathered in Jingqing. They will compete for spots in the Federation's top 3 academies, in a fierce competition lasting 1 month. On the TV screen, proud, dazzling faces flashed by. They wore magnificent combat suits, with prestigious family emblems behind them. Flashbulbs surged like a tide above them, as if they were born to stand above the clouds. You stood by the window, quietly watching the screen, but your gaze grew colder and colder. These people are the true chosen ones of this world. Resources, lineage, opportunities, prestige, they held them in their hands from the moment they were born. And you, crawled out from ruins, dark alleys and the line between life and death, step by step. But because of this, that's why you must go. You walked into the bathroom, washed away all the grime from your body, and changed into a black combat suit looted from the Shura battlefield. Then, you slung the long combat knife taken from old Jin's safe onto your back. Finally, you looked back at your sleeping sister on the hospital bed. She finally survived. So now, it's your turn to settle the score with this world. You pushed open the hospital doors. The midday sun was as piercing as a blade, but you only narrowed your eyes, and then stepped outside. Jiangqing, this place full of darkness and struggle, is nothing more than a starter village. The real hunting ground is in the capital. Let those high and mighty geniuses experience the game of despair. Now, it has only just begun.